we're back another week of the John Alite Show. And this one's actually, I like this show because I like this guy. And I'm going to talk about the Patriarca boss in the early 90s, Frank Cadillac Salemme. Tough guy. And guys could say who knew him, prison, I did time with him. I knew him from the street. I met him in the 90s, and I knew guys that knew him. So Frank was an old throwback to the old-time gangsters that I talk about all the time, like a Vito Genovese and these guys. He was a gangster's gangster. He was a tough son of a bitch, always worked out as a younger guy. And even when he got older, in prison, he worked out all the time. But Frank had they tried to hit him. He got shot at one time, I believe, in the stomach or chest and the leg. And he was tight with Whitey Bulger. He was tight with Fleming. He was tight with Weeks. Killed a lot of guys. Frank, I don't know exactly how many guys, but I'd say he was involved in probably about 10 murders, directly, indirectly. He was involved in a murder that of a guy his son strangled to death, and another guy held his legs, his feet while he was being strangled. It was a nightclub owner that they were involved with, that the feds went to see, and they were trying to get him to cooperate. They caught wind of it, and it was a big mistake, actually, by the way the agents blatantly saw the guy and let everybody know. And they didn't want to leave him out there. They thought he was going to turn. The wife of the gentleman, claims he wasn't gonna. I have no reason to believe that he was gonna either, because the family swears he was. At this time, he's dead. They could say, well, he was gonna, and the guy's family and kids don't talk against the government for the way they handle, but the wife was very boisterous about it. Frank had a big reputation on the street. People liked him, and people were feared him, both. When these guys were tipped by John Connolly, I believe it was the agent's name, that was working both sides, and later on, Frank finds out that the whole time when he's hanging out with Whitey Bulger and he's hanging out with Fleming, they're both informants with Connolly. Now, he believed they were getting information, but he thought they were buying the information for people that don't know. He actually knew they were meeting, and they were slick with Frank. And they told him, well, we're getting good information, but they told me they were paying for the information. So when he found out that these guys have been informants the whole time, they're killing guys together, they're selling drugs together, they're doing everything together, Frank was irate. He was crazy. That, when they went on the run, because they went on a run when Connolly tipped them, Whitey Bulger ends up, I believe, in California, Santa Monica. I think that's where he was. And, when they caught Bulger, they caught him with a ton of guns and $300,000 or $400,000 in cash in the walls. And he was with his girl, so he was comfortable where he was at. He wasn't moving. He had his girlfriend. Everybody thought he left the country. He was actually in California. The difference is Frank, I believe, went to Florida. He got picked up. And when he got picked up, he did about 16 years, Frank, I think, on that. Did a lot of time. And when he found out that these guys were informants the whole time, and he was getting his discovery, he was done. He says, okay, now he wanted to get even with the agent, because the agent he thought was, just working with them and he would get paid. Then he finds out the whole time the agent's working with them and against him also. He agrees to testify. And he testified at Senate hearings. He testified, not just at the trial, but he went to Senate hearings because of the corruption within the FBI. And they were trying to see who else was involved, if anybody else was involved. So he was open to spill his guts on what the agent was up to and what he did and any information he had against anybody else. So the problem that Frank had is, when he was going through the wars and he was killing guys with these guys, he's completely exposed. There is no coverage for him. And he goes to trial and he pleads out and he does different things on some of his cases. And he ends up with the ability to get out because of the Connolly thing. And he does testify and he eventually does get out of jail. He was in MCC with me. He was, and listen, he was a tough old man still. He didn't take no shit. And he hated my friend Sammy Gravano. Hated him. He couldn't stand him. He used to say, you mention his name, he would go irate. He was livid with me, couldn't stand him. He said if he ever had him on the street again, that would be his first thing, is to kill Sammy. He couldn't stand him. So, and he was a clean freak. And then every night, as he was getting old, he was having trouble holding his bladder, and he would curse, but he didn't take no shit from nobody still as an old man. And then, like I said, when he was younger, he was a tough guy. He was always in shape, worked out all the time. But he didn't talk about a murder of the nightclub owner. So when he gets out, I believe they relocated him. I don't know where it was. I think it was on the East Coast. I don't think it was anywhere far. Maybe for some reason I want to say Georgia or somewhere like that. But he ends up getting re-picked up. Now, when he gets re-picked up, after he did his time, he did 16, 17 years, something like that. He did other time besides that. Then he makes the deal on Connolly. He goes back to jail. And then he goes into witness protection. They throw him out on the street. And I don't know how long he lasts on the street. I don't think long, 3, 4, 5 years maybe. And they come back to pick him up again. And this time they're going to charge him with the murder of the nightclub owner, and his son was strangling the guy. And his son dies. His son died back some years. His son, I believe, died in the mid to late 90s, something like that. So the body gets dug up after 20-something years. Somebody comes forward, and I believe it was one of his good friends. Surprise, right? The Mafia, loyalty and respect and honor and men of honor, the badge, this. The last show I told you is about 15 made guys and bosses and captain wearing wires, and they're all ratting on each other, the Bonanno family. Now I'm going to tell you about the Patriotic family. They're all cooperating. Bobby Louise later on, he cooperates. So this is, like I tell everybody every time they talk about this, whoever believes in the loyalty and the honor and the badge and the stupid terminology, men of honor, is really naive. Maybe that's in some of the movies. Even in the movies, it's not, actually. So I don't know where everybody gets this belief from. But I took it all the way back to Albert Anastasia on one of my shows, that he gave up his own buddy too, real. So when they were going to give him the death sentence, when he was on the run, they couldn't find him, and they were getting a lot of pressure, so he gives him up. I mean, that's Albert Anastasia, right? Mad Hatter, Killer, Murder Inc. So I'm always going through this so people to like wake up, and those kids that listen to these stories, they really get it. This is about self-survival, money, and power and egos. It's not about being loyal to anybody. Everybody's just their instinct of surviving that's what it's about. Making money, and you're friends with everybody until you're not friends with anybody. And then the betrayal all starts on all these guys. But when Frank's number gets, punched, they come pick him back up, and they put him back in prison, and he goes back to trial. And all the way in the whole time in trial, actually, the old man, Frank he swears the prosecutor's lying. The truth's going to come out. So he doesn't even give the wife of the guy that was killed, the deceased, any kind of real closure completely. Because always in the back of her mind, maybe she's saying, maybe he is right. He did get screwed over with, the FBI being corrupt. So who knows? It gives you that little bit of doubt that doesn't give you that complete comfort that you're looking for to put this to rest and put this to bed and, be able to, finally, because for years they didn't know what happened to him. Everybody's always got that hope. For anybody that doesn't know, you didn't live this life. When the husband was never found, he was strangled, killed, buried. They don't know, they want to believe maybe he went on the run. They want to believe he's alive, because you don't want to give into the hope that he's just dead. So that unknown for all those years is devastating. You just really don't know. Is he really dead? You want to believe there's a shot somewhere, that he got in trouble somewhere and he took off and he ain't calling for whatever crazy reason you put in your mind, because, mentally you're trying to deal with it. And those are the ways you try to deal with it. So when they go to trial, he blows trial. He gets a life sentence, and he's cursing at the prosecutor that he's lying, he's full of shit. The real truth, they're just screwing him the way they screwed him with the Whitey Bulger thing. And Whitey Bulger, for the people, unless you're in Mars, you don't know what happened to him. He gets caught. When he gets caught, they pick him up, they bring him back to West Virginia. And in the penitentiaries in West Virginia, he gets beat to death by 3 guys. They all got charged with the murder, conspiracy to commit murder. And those guys, it was 2 brothers. It was only one of them that was involved in the murder. He wasn't shy. He liked the press. And he used to stay with Anthony Arulada, who's Genovese captain up in Springfield, who he also cooperated, and guys cooperated against him and that crew. So it was his guys that actually killed Whitey. But he got stomped on and killed, and he got torturously killed, actually. He got beat to death. So he didn't die quickly. And he was an old man too. I don't know what age he was at that time, Bulger, but he was in his 80s somewhere. So the loyalty of any of this goes out the window every time you tell a story about a new guy, a new boss, captains. It's always the same thing. It's a betrayal. It's a guy cooperating. It's the whole team of them cooperating. All the captains, all the bosses are wearing wires. And I'm always trying to explain this, because when they talk about, Tumac, say, with the Lucchese family in New Jersey, he cooperated. He was a tough guy. Or you got Gas Pipe with the Lucchese family. He cooperated. He ends up dying in jail, suffering in jail. Was a maniac. Everybody was afraid of him. And you had, Al Diarco, Lucchese boss. He cooperated. And so I'm trying to tell you, it's not like everybody says, it's just these associates or these guys that are running errands, or it's just outside. It's the bosses that are cooperating now, and and captains and concierges, and they all fell with Banana family, and earlier during the war, after the war in the 90s with the Colombo family, they all fell. The whole family that decimated with guys cooperating. So it's about survival, no different than any other thing in the world, whether it's war or whether it's prisons. People do what they could do to survive for themselves, their family, and financially. So when Frank ends up dying in prison, his son dies before that. His brother, I believe, I'm not sure if his brother was killed. I think he was killed, though. And he had a brother, I believe, who was killed. And that's the real reality of the life. And was Frank a tough guy? Yeah, without a doubt. Put in a lot of work, did a lot of scores, got shot up. He'd been through everything, and he got betrayed. Ultimate betrayal. And Kevin Weeks, I believe, was involved in this, doing some testimony, a lot of testifying over this, and different things. I mean, don't get me wrong; these guys were dangerous, serious guys. But as soon as the hammer came, they were all maneuvering to cooperate and make deals, and they had a ton of bodies. These guys, they were dangerous guys. For the people that don't know, Boston, Saudi is a rough area. They came out of that neighborhood. I mean, it's a beautiful neighborhood now. It's like Williamsburg, Brooklyn. They redid it. If all of us knew what was going to go on in these neighborhoods, you could get rich just buying property there and saving it, because Saudi's beautiful now. It's like a mini Williamsburg. It's got museums and stores and the areas. It's really unbelievable down there for the people who know. But Saudi, everybody grew up there as as gangsters. Most armed cars, robberies are probably in any area. Tough guys, they all fought with their hands. They were all wild with guns. That area brought a lot of tough guys out of that neighborhood. And you see a lot of movies being done, repeated out of that neighborhood. And you got, guys like Marky Wahlberg that knew a lot of those guys, actually. They know him since he's a kid. You had, and I talk about different guys that were tough guys, nice guys. Pat Nee was out of that neighborhood. The Shea brothers were out of that neighborhood. And, as time goes on, people forget some of these guys' names, but they were all serious guys that did a lot of things on the street. And whether you like Cadillac, Frank Salemme or not, he was a tough guy. And the guys that knew him will say, they might not have liked him. They might have said a lot of disparaging things against him. Well, some people liked him, but he was real. He was a gangster. Anybody, if you like the contact the show, you want to ask about Frank or any of the other guys that were from that area, subscribe, write your questions, and follow me. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you again. See ya.